The quiet sobbing coming from my daughter's bedroom broke the silence of the Sunday afternoon. I pushed the door open. Maya was sitting cross-legged on her rug, her face buried in her hands. Her laptop screen was glowing an ominous, unblinking white. I knelt beside her. She pointed a trembling finger at the monitor. "Everything is gone, Mom," she whispered. Her voice was completely broken. "My entire repository, the backups, the cloud sync. It is all wiped." Maya was 15. She was a quiet, brilliant girl who spent her weekends building complex software architectures instead of going to parties. For the past 11 months, she had been pouring her soul into an advanced machine learning application. It was an intuitive study assistant designed for neurodivergent students. She built it from scratch. She intended to submit it to the Genesis Youth Tech Incubator, a highly prestigious competition offering a $50,000 grant and mentorship from elite Silicon Valley engineers. I looked at the blank directory on her screen. Data does not simply vanish. It leaves a footprint. I work as a senior cybersecurity architect for a financial firm. Tracing deleted files is my daily routine. I took the laptop, booted it into a secure diagnostic mode, and pulled the local network logs from our home router. The betrayal unfolded in lines of raw, undeniable data. At 2 a.m. the previous night, an internal device had remotely accessed Maya's unprotected development folder. The logs showed a complete cloning operation. Every single line of code, every visual asset, every database structure was copied. Immediately after the transfer finished, a targeted wipe command was executed to erase the original files. I checked the IP address of the invading device. It belonged to the desktop computer in my husband's home office. My pulse remained completely steady. I did not storm down the hallway. I simply closed the laptop and told Maya I would send the hard drive to a professional recovery lab. I promised her everything would be fine. I walked into the home office. My husband, Nolan, was at the golf course. I bypassed his flimsy login password and opened his cloud dashboard. The stolen project was sitting in a shared folder titled Genesis Submission Final. The folder was shared with his older brother, Simon. Simon was the undisputed golden boy of their toxic family. He was a loud, overbearing man who constantly boasted about his mediocre sales career. He treated Nolan like a pathetic sidekick. Nolan accommodated this dynamic perfectly. He constantly sought his brother's approval, sacrificing his own self-respect just to be included in Simon's orbit. Simon had a 17-year-old son named Declan. Declan was the epitome of unearned confidence. He spent his days streaming video games and mocking kids who actually cared about their grades. Simon was obsessed with portraying his family as a dynasty of high achievers. He had bragged for weeks that Declan was entering the Genesis Incubator with a revolutionary app idea. Declan did not have an idea. He had my daughter's stolen life's work. I opened the text message application synced to Nolan's computer. The conversation history between the two brothers was sickening. Simon wrote, "You sure the kid won't notice the copy?" Nolan replied, "I wiped the local drive. I'll tell her the motherboard fried. She's a teenager, she doesn't understand backup redundancy. Just make sure Declan changes the UI colors before he submits it to the judges. That grant money is going to look great on his college applications." Nolan sold out his own daughter's future just to earn a pat on the back from his narcissistic brother. They intended to gaslight a 15-year-old girl, let her mourn the loss of her hard work, and proudly watch a lazy bully claim the victory on a public stage. They assumed I was just a corporate manager who didn't understand the intricacies of my daughter's hobby. They completely ignored the fact that I was the one who taught Maya how to write her very first line of code. I did not pack my bags. I did not print the text messages and throw them in Nolan's face. If you confront a liar, they will simply change their story. I needed a permanent, undeniable execution of justice. I went back to my own secure workstation. Maya's local files were deleted, but true developers always leave a backdoor. We had built a hidden developer console into the core architecture of the app months ago, designed to let us remotely push emergency patches if the software ever crashed during testing. Nolan and Simon were not programmers. They only knew how to copy and paste. They had no idea the backdoor existed. I accessed the remote console. The application was currently active on Declan's machine. I began writing a new payload. It was a surgical, highly specific script. I embedded it deeply into the presentation layer of the app. I tied the activation trigger to a specific sequence of screen taps that I knew Declan would use during his live demonstration. I spent 4 hours refining the code. When I was finished, I locked the back door so no one could remove the update. The Genesis Incubator pitch event was held on a Saturday afternoon. Nolan played the role of the caring father flawlessly. He offered to take Maya out for lunch and a movie, claiming she needed a distraction from her computer troubles. He wanted her as far away from the internet as possible so she wouldn't see the live stream of the competition. I told him I had errands to run. I got in my car and drove downtown. The event took place in a sleek, modern co-working hub. The room was packed with tech scouts, wealthy angel investors, and proud parents. The judging panel consisted of 4 elite software engineers from major tech firms. I stood in the very back of the room, blending into the crowd near the catering tables. Simon was sitting in the front row, wearing an expensive blazer. He was loudly telling the parents next to him about his son's natural genius. Declan stood near the staging area, wearing a crisp, button-down shirt, looking incredibly bored. The head judge called Declan's name. Declan walked up to the podium. He connected his tablet to the main projector. A 50-inch screen illuminated behind him, displaying the exact user interface my daughter had meticulously designed, poorly recolored in an ugly shade of neon green. Declan began his pitch. He recited a memorized script. He talked about his passion for helping students. He used buzzwords he clearly did not understand. Simon beamed with pride from the front row. "Now, I will demonstrate the core algorithm," Declan announced confidently. He tapped the screen to launch the primary study module. That specific tap was the trigger. The application did not open the study module. The screen violently flickered. The ugly green interface dissolved into a stark, black command terminal. Lines of red text began scrolling across the projector at lightning speed. The judges leaned forward, frowning in confusion. Declan frantically tapped the screen of his tablet, trying to force close the app. The tablet was completely locked. The scrolling text stopped. A new, undeniable message appeared on the 50-inch screen in bright white letters. Unauthorized clone detected. Original author, Maya Sterling. Executing theft disclosure protocol. A collective murmur rolled through the audience. Simon stood up from his chair. His confident smile vanished. Declan panicked. He tried to unplug the display cable, but the system had already mirrored the output to the venue's internal network. The screen shifted. It did not display code. It displayed high-definition screenshots of the text messages between Nolan and Simon. The audience read every single word. They read Nolan admitting to wiping his daughter's hard drive. They read Simon plotting to use the stolen project for college applications. The silence in the room became incredibly heavy. The elite judges stared at the screen, their expressions shifting from confusion to absolute disgust. "What is this?" the head judge demanded, his voice ringing clearly through his microphone. "Declan, care to explain why your application is broadcasting a conversation about stealing a 15-year-old girl's repository?" Declan's face paled. He looked like he was going to be physically sick. He backed away from the podium. "I didn't write it," he stammered, his voice cracking. "My dad gave it to me. He said he bought the template." He threw his own father under the bus in front of 50 influential professionals. Simon's complexion turned ashen. He looked around the room. The other parents were glaring at him. The angel investors were whispering to each other, taking photos of the projector screen with their phones. His reputation as a successful, ethical businessman was instantly incinerated. Mr. Sterling, the head judge, addressed Simon directly. Plagiarism is an automatic disqualification. However, corporate espionage and intellectual property theft involve law enforcement. We are securing this device for a formal investigation. Security will escort you and your son out of the building. 2 venue security guards approached the front row. Simon did not argue. He grabbed his jacket. He kept his eyes glued to the floor. Declan scurried behind him, humiliated on the very stage he thought would bring him glory. They walked toward the back exit. They had to pass directly by the catering tables. Simon looked up. He saw me standing there. He froze in his tracks. The realization hit him. He understood exactly who wrote the disclosure protocol. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. He looked absolutely terrified. I did not offer a dramatic speech. I did not raise my voice to humiliate him further. The screen behind the podium had already done the job perfectly. I simply tilted my head and gave him a brief, polite nod. The security guards ushered them out the door. I turned around and walked out a separate exit. I pulled my phone from my purse and dialed my divorce attorney. Nolan thought he could sacrifice our child's future to feed his brother's ego. He was about to return from the movie theater to find his wife gone, his text messages forwarded to his employer, and his entire life reduced to zero. I stepped into the cool evening air. I let the heavy glass doors of the venue click shut behind me. You cannot steal the architecture of someone else's brilliance without inheriting the security systems they built into the walls.